opened the shutter at the back of the lorry and it's jammed to the hilt. It's fantastic.
She was the calm, sharp-eyed expert who gave Salvage Hunters its soul, the woman who could glance at a forgotten relic and instantly see its story. But time has changed Rebecca Pritchard in ways that left fans stunned. These days she looks strikingly different, slimmer, quieter, and far removed from the bustling world that once made her famous. What happened after she disappeared from the screens? Was it illness, heartbreak, or something deeper? The answer isn't simple, and it's far more heartbreaking than anyone imagined. The rise of Rebecca Pritchard. Rebecca Pritchard didn't come into television by chance. Long before anyone saw her on Salvage Hunters, she'd already built a name for herself in two completely different industries. Born on February 19, 1958, in the UK, she grew up with a natural eye for detail and a curiosity for how things were made, qualities that later defined her restoration career. Before TV ever came calling, Rebecca spent nearly 20 years in the fashion industry. She worked across wholesale, retail, and manufacturing, splitting her time between Hong Kong and the UK. Here, she learned how to manage suppliers, understand design quality, and spot value, skills that required precision and judgment. This environment taught her how to work under pressure and how to make decisions quickly, both of which would later serve her perfectly in television. After 2 decades in fashion, Rebecca decided to shift gears completely. She moved into property development, but again, not in a surface-level way. Her focus was on restoring old and historic buildings, the kind most people might have overlooked. She loved the process of bringing something neglected back to life. Whether it was an old farmhouse or a Georgian townhouse, Rebecca had a genuine respect for craftsmanship and history. By the late 2000s, she was already known in her circle for her understanding of architectural design and restoration. That's around the time she crossed paths with Drew Pritchard, a well-known architectural antiques dealer with a passion for finding hidden gems. Together, their skills matched in a way that felt almost effortless. Their chemistry, both professional and personal, eventually led to Salvage Hunters, a show that began airing in 2011 on Quest TV. It was simple in concept, but addictive to watch. Drew traveled across the country looking for antiques and salvage pieces, while Rebecca handled the valuations, historical research, and restoration advice. She didn't just sit in front of a camera describing things. She was part of the process, and her knowledge gave the show its backbone. What made Rebecca stand out was how naturally she handled everything. When she talked about a piece, viewers could tell she cared about the story behind it. She brought a sense of authenticity that made Salvage Hunters feel real. She also had a calm, professional presence that balanced out Drew's energetic approach. When he'd come back from a trip full of excitement about a new find, Rebecca was the one who grounded the moment. Their working relationship had that mix of respect and occasional tension that made for good television, not dramatic, but real enough to keep viewers invested. As the show grew, so did Rebecca's reputation. Fans started recognizing her not just as Drew's co-host, but as a respected figure in her own right. She became known for her expertise and her ability to explain antiques in a way that felt approachable. She didn't talk down to anyone or try to sound overly academic. Whether it was a 19th century armchair or a piece of industrial machinery, she made it interesting to watch. That credibility carried over into Salvage Hunters, The Restorers, a spin-off series that focused more on the restoration process itself. It showed the skilled craftspeople who worked behind the scenes to bring old items back to life, and Rebecca's presence gave it that same addictive feel. But working on Salvage Hunters wasn't just about appearing on camera and talking about antiques. It actually came with constant intellectual pressure. Her job required quick, accurate valuations while filming, often with limited preparation time. There wasn't much room for hesitation or error. She also had to provide the historical background that gave the show its depth, explaining where a piece came from and why it mattered. Balancing this with the fast pace of television made the work mentally demanding in ways viewers rarely saw. Outside the studio, her involvement in property restoration brought its own challenges. Restoring old or listed buildings meant dealing with heritage regulations, unpredictable costs, and the constant risk that a project could uncover structural problems that changed everything. Between the pressures of production and the uncertainty of restoration, Rebecca's role was far more challenging than it looked on screen, both creatively and financially. By the mid-2010s, Rebecca had become one of the most recognizable faces in the British antique scene. And while she wasn't overly concerned about fame, the success of Salvage Hunters put her in the spotlight anyway. Although she handled it all with confidence, the growing attention around the show and around her partnership with Drew would eventually bring challenges that even her calm professionalism couldn't fully shield her from. Because behind all the success, their personal life was slowly changing, and the balance that once made everything work began to shift in ways no one saw coming. Marriage to Drew Pritchard. Rebecca and Drew Pritchard's partnership began long before Salvage Hunters ever existed. They were already married, already running a business together, and already known in the antiques world for their shared talent. By the time television found them, they'd built years of experience and a life that revolved around restoration, design, and old treasures. Their chemistry was real, but working together every single day is never easy, especially when your marriage is also your business. Some rumors claim that the couple were total opposites in how they handled pressure. Drew was always on the move, chasing deals, taking risks, and living off adrenaline. Rebecca, on the other hand, preferred structure. She liked things done properly, planned out, and calm. This difference made them a great team professionally, but privately, it sometimes caused friction. Still, they kept the business running, raised a family, and managed to turn their shared passion into a success story. For a while, it seemed like everything worked. But then rumors began spreading around their hometown of Conwy, and the quiet, private life they'd tried to protect became harder to keep out of the spotlight. These rumors were about Drew's controversial personal life, specifically affairs that allegedly happened while he was still married to Rebecca. One story in particular caused a stir in North Wales. According to local news at the time, a man named Janice Thomas confronted Drew at the Liverpool Arms pub after learning that Drew had been involved with his wife. Witnesses claimed it turned physical after Drew allegedly sent him taunting messages. Some reports even said Drew smirked during the exchange, which reportedly led to Thomas initiating a physical altercation. The situation turned into one of those stories that spread quickly in a small town. People talked about it for months. Reports later suggested that Thomas was banned from every pub in Conwy and ordered to pay fines, though neither side ever confirmed what really happened. Rebecca, as usual, stayed completely silent. While the details of what went on privately between her and Drew were never made public, what's clear is that the scandal didn't make life easier. They still had to show up to film together, still had a business to run, and still had fans who believed in the on-screen partnership. Rebecca carried on like nothing had changed, always polite, always professional, and never feeding the gossip. It was this professionalism that made people respect her even more. While Drew's name kept popping up in headlines, Rebecca focused on work and kept her dignity intact. She didn't need to clear the air or make statements. She simply went on doing what she was known for. Unfortunately, eventually, the strain became too much to ignore, and what had once been a strong partnership between Drew and Rebecca began to quietly fall apart, leading to the heartbreaking end of their marriage that no one saw coming. The heartbreaking divorce. In 2017, Rebecca and Drew Pritchard separated, and later that year, their divorce was officially finalized. But by the time their marriage came to an end, most people had no idea anything was wrong. They'd spent years working side by side, traveling for shoots, running their business, and sharing the screen as if nothing had changed. And so, when the divorce was finally confirmed, fans were genuinely stunned. The couple who'd built a whole show together, who seemed perfectly in sync on Salvage Hunters, had quietly gone their separate ways. Neither of them ever gave interviews or public statements about what went wrong, and that silence said a lot. In fact, there were no bitter posts, no press stories quoting anonymous sources close to the couple, or even social media back and forth. They simply ended things, kept the details private, and carried on. For Rebecca, this was very much in character. She had always been private about her personal life, and she stayed consistent even when curiosity around her marriage reached its peak. Of course, the lack of answers only fueled speculation. The media drew its own conclusions. linking the timing of their separation to the stories that had circulated about Drew's alleged affairs. His name had already appeared in local papers and gossip columns, and the pieces fit together too neatly for people not to assume that infidelity played a role. Still, Rebecca never confirmed it. This silence made people admire her even more. In an age where everyone explains everything online, Rebecca's decision to keep her private life private stood out. But what surprised viewers even more was that the divorce didn't immediately affect the show. For a while after the split, both Rebecca and Drew continued appearing together on Salvage Hunters. They worked as colleagues the same way they always had. On camera, nothing looked different. They were professional, polite, and focused on the antiques. Fans who didn't follow the news might not even have realized they were no longer married. Behind the scenes, though, it couldn't have been easy. Working alongside your ex, especially on a show that depends on natural chemistry, takes a level of professionalism most people don't have. Yet Rebecca managed it. However, those who watched closely noticed subtle changes, including fewer scenes of them together, less back-and-forth banter, and a calmer, more distant tone, but the respect between them still came through. The show continued to thrive, but fans couldn't help feeling a little sad. They'd watched Rebecca and Drew for years and saw them as a team. Their breakup felt personal to the audience, especially because viewers had been part of their journey from the start. Social media was full of comments expressing shock and sympathy. Many praised Rebecca for handling everything with grace and keeping her work separate from her personal life. Others simply said it felt strange watching them together after knowing what had happened. For Drew, the aftermath was different. His name stayed in the press a little longer, partly because of the earlier controversies. But even though Rebecca handled the divorce with strength, the years that followed brought new challenges of their own. And that's when fans began to get really concerned. Some even took to social media and fan forums to express their concern, because the woman who had once seemed unshakable now looked like she'd been through far more than anyone realized. Health update and drastic weight loss. In the later seasons of Salvage Hunters, fans began noticing something different about Rebecca Pritchard. She looked noticeably slimmer, and it quickly became one of the most talked about topics among viewers. The change wasn't sudden, but over time, it became clear that she had lost a significant amount of weight. For someone who had always looked healthy and vibrant on screen, the transformation sparked concern. Viewers started commenting online, asking if she was okay or if something had happened. It wasn't in a gossipy way. People genuinely cared. Rebecca had always been seen as grounded and relatable, so seeing her looking thinner made longtime fans uneasy. The show itself never addressed it, and Rebecca didn't either. She continued doing her job as usual, calm and focused, never acknowledging the speculation surrounding her appearance. Over the years, the conversation only grew. Because she never explained the change, people filled in the blanks themselves. Some thought she might have been dealing with health issues, while others assumed it was just natural aging or the result of lifestyle changes. When you've been on TV for years, even small changes become big topics online, and that's exactly what happened with her. Despite the concern, there's never been any confirmed report of Rebecca suffering from a serious illness. No hospitalization stories or official medical updates, nothing that suggests something is wrong. In fact, a few online sources have claimed that she's doing well. They've pointed to her Instagram page, where she occasionally posts about her work and interests. The photos there show her looking healthy and active, suggesting that she's simply living a quieter, more private life these days. That hasn't stopped the speculation, though. Some fans believe her weight loss might be linked to stress. It wouldn't be surprising, considering everything she's been through in recent years, from the divorce to stepping back from television and navigating life after years in the public eye. Others think it could just be part of growing older and adopting new habits, especially since Rebecca has always seemed health-conscious and disciplined. Still, without any confirmation from her, all of it remains guesswork. Rebecca has always valued her privacy, and she's continued to do so even when people speculate about her well-being. Unlike most TV personalities who might post an update or make a statement to stop the rumors, she's chosen to stay silent, especially because keeping her personal life off social media seems more important than clearing up the gossip. In a way, her silence has become part of her image. It fits with who she's always been: calm, private, and focused on her work rather than attention. When fans look through her posts, they see glimpses of her old interests, antiques, restoration projects, and design, not drama or attention-seeking posts. People who've followed her journey for years seem to respect that. While the questions about her weight loss still appear in comment sections and fan discussions, most agree that if Rebecca hasn't shared anything, it's probably because there's nothing serious to share. It's just another example of how she's managed to maintain control over her own story, even after leaving the spotlight. What's clear is that Rebecca Pritchard's current health appears stable. She might look different from her early years on Salvage Hunters, but she's still active, still working on projects, and still keeping in touch with fans through her occasional posts. Those who've met her at antique fairs or events have described her as friendly and approachable, with the same calm energy she was known for on television. Her transformation might have sparked concern at first, but over time, most viewers have accepted that Rebecca simply moved into a new phase of life that's quieter and more private, but still very much her own. The truth is, no one really knows the full story behind her weight loss, and that's exactly how she seems to want it. And while fans still hope to see her return to Salvage Hunters someday, the reality is that her time on the show slowly came to an end, and with that, a big chapter of her life quietly closed. Departure from Salvage Hunters. After more than a decade on Salvage Hunters, Rebecca Pritchard's presence on the show began to fade. It wasn't sudden, but fans noticed. Her appearances grew fewer with each season until eventually she was gone altogether. When the show's official account later posted a short reel titled "Goodbye Rebecca," thanking her for her contribution over the years, it felt like the end of an era. For many viewers, that post confirmed what they had already suspected. Rebecca had quietly stepped away. The video didn't offer details, just clips of her best moments and a simple message of gratitude. There was no big farewell episode or behind-the-scenes explanation either. She left the same way she'd always carried herself, calm, respectful, and without fanfare. As soon as the reel went up, speculation started. Some believed she had left for health reasons, pointing to her noticeable weight loss in the later seasons. Others thought it might have been about privacy. After years of public scrutiny and the fallout from her divorce, it made sense that she might want a quieter life away from the cameras. A few fans even guessed she'd gone back to her roots in property development or private antique dealing, something she'd always been passionate about long before television came along. Whatever the reason, her departure marked a real change for Salvage Hunters. Rebecca had been part of the show since the very beginning, and her calm balance against Drew's energetic style was a big part of what made the series work. Without her, the show felt different, still interesting, but missing that steady presence viewers had come to rely on. Fans reacted exactly as you'd expect, comment sections filled with kind words, memories, and questions about where she'd gone. Some even made short tribute videos online, revisiting her best clips and favorite quotes. Others wrote that they missed her insights, saying the show didn't feel quite the same without her perspective. It was clear that Rebecca had left a real impression on people who had watched her for years. Interestingly, Quest TV never released an official statement about her exit, which only added to the quiet mystery surrounding her departure. It seemed like everyone, from the network to the crew and Rebecca herself, chose to let her step away peacefully. Since then, Salvage Hunters has continued. But for many fans, that early era with Rebecca remains special. She brought authenticity, warmth, and expertise that helped define the show's tone in its best years. And though she's no longer part of it, her influence is still felt in the way the series approaches antiques and storytelling today. Not long after Rebecca stepped away, Drew Pritchard also surprised fans by announcing his own departure from Salvage Hunters. After more than a decade as the face of the show, his exit marked the end of an era that had defined both his career and the channel's identity. The news came quietly, without any major publicity push, just a few short posts and industry updates confirming that Drew was moving on to focus on other ventures. Fans suspect that the show's demanding schedule and constant filming had taken their toll on him, especially the long days on the road, endless shoots, and little time for personal life. And so, rather than fade out, Drew probably chose to step back while the show was still successful, leaving behind a legacy that defined an entire genre of British factual TV. The truth is, Drew's life and priorities had shifted. He had his own antiques business to run, his architectural salvage yard to manage, and new opportunities emerging outside television, just like Rebecca. After both Drew and Rebecca had left, Salvage Hunters continued, but the show wasn't without its share of controversies. Over the years, questions surfaced about how authentic some of the featured deals really were. A few critics pointed out that verifying the provenance of antiques under tight TV production deadlines could be nearly impossible, and that not every piece shown might have been sourced exactly as it appeared on screen. Some dealers even suggested that the buying and negotiation scenes were sometimes reshaped through editing to heighten the drama. Behind the scenes, the production schedule was also known to be demanding, occasionally forcing filming at times that didn't always align with genuine market opportunities. Some moments caught public attention for other controversial reasons, like when Drew admitted he had nearly hurt himself while driving a BMW, a comment that sparked concern among fans about his safety and habits off camera. But that's not all. The show has also drawn mixed reactions from viewers. While some praised Drew's haggling style as realistic and true to the antiques trade, others have found it too harsh or overly staged. Even within the industry, dealers had opinions. A number of them claimed that once an item appeared on Salvage Hunters, it became nearly impossible to buy similar pieces affordably, arguing that the show had inflated interest and distorted prices across the market. None of these issues ever derailed the program completely, but they left a lasting conversation about how television fame can change even a small, specialist trade like antiques dealing. But while Rebecca's decision to leave the show might have closed one chapter, it didn't mean she disappeared completely. Away from the cameras, Rebecca has built a quieter, more personal life, and from what people have seen, she seems content with that change. Is Rebecca still hunting? Even though Rebecca Pritchard hasn't appeared regularly on Salvage Hunters for a while, she hasn't exactly disappeared from the antiques world. In fact, she's still quietly involved, just not in front of the camera anymore. People who follow her work know she's still out there doing what she does best, only now it's mostly behind the scenes. Rebecca has always been more about the craft than the attention. After leaving television, she reportedly stayed active through private valuations and consulting work. That means when collectors or dealers need an expert opinion on an antique's authenticity or market value, she's still one of the people they might turn to. It's the kind of work that fits her focused, detailed, and private personality perfectly. She's kept a modest presence on social media too, mainly through her Instagram account. The posts are rare, but when she does share something, it's usually professional. Photos of antique pieces, interiors, or restoration projects. Every so often, fans still leave comments asking if she'll ever return to Salvage Hunters. Others simply tell her how much they miss seeing her on screen. She rarely replies, but those traces of her online show that she hasn't walked away from the antiques world entirely. She's just doing it her own way now. What most people still don't know is that Rebecca's background extends far beyond antiques and television. She has experience in business and commercial strategy, skills she developed long before fame. This explains why she transitioned so smoothly from fashion to restoration, and later to antiques. Everything she's done connects back to one thing: knowing how to recognize value, whether it's in a building, an artifact, or a piece of furniture. This blend of business and creativity is part of what makes her so respected in her field. People who've worked with her say she approaches everything with the same attention to detail she always had on television. And that's probably why she's still in demand even now, years after stepping out of the public eye. Despite all the fame she earned from Salvage Hunters, Rebecca never acted like a celebrity. She didn't go to events, give flashy interviews, or try to build a media brand out of her name. While many TV personalities use their success to expand into side projects or influencer-style careers, she did the opposite. She chose peace over publicity. And this decision has given her the freedom to live life on her own terms, away from all the noise that comes with reality television. As for where she lives now, not much is known. It's believed she still resides somewhere in the UK, though her exact location isn't public. Given how private she's always been, it's easy to imagine her tucked away in a quiet countryside home, surrounded by antiques, restoration work, and a few trusted friends who know how much she values her privacy. She hasn't remarried, and by all appearances, she's single. There's no sign of any new relationship in her life, at least not one she's shared publicly. Instead, she seems focused on her work and her well-being, a slower, more intentional lifestyle after years of juggling television, business, and personal challenges. For someone who spent so long in the spotlight, it's easy to understand why a quiet life might feel like a luxury. Even though she's no longer part of Salvage Hunters, Rebecca Pritchard's influence still lingers. The fans who followed her from the very beginning still talk about her professionalism, her warmth, and the unique balance she brought to the show. Many credit her for giving it that authentic tone that sets it apart from typical reality programs. Rebecca Pritchard is living proof that stepping away from television doesn't mean stepping away from purpose. She's still connected to the same world she helped popularize, just without the cameras and the chaos. And while fans might miss seeing her on screen, it's clear that Rebecca Pritchard hasn't lost her touch. She's simply continued doing what she's always done, finding beauty and value in the things that most people overlook. Would you like to see Rebecca Pritchard make a comeback on television? Drop your answers in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.